To talk enough, he'll say something to get him in trouble.
Well, look, no, I'm not trying to get cancelled.
Clivate, we're not here to get you in trouble, man. This is a safe space.
I will get in trouble.
We might sound, actually, can you bring Clivate's mic just a little bit closer for him? Those mic stands are so annoying. So if we do,
no problem.
If you do it, we're gonna set this studio on fire somehow.
Right there.
Yeah, that's good. That's better.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Amazing. And we're rolling. We're live. So, boys, we're here. Clivate, welcome to the couch.
Thank you. The aforementioned Kluivert, you know.
Black Panther.
The Black Panther. Why do they call you the Black Panther?
Big story behind it.
The big story behind it, but it's just the Panther at first. Because it went from the truth to, a few nicknames I had as well.
Kluivert, like, you know how nicknames go around the gym? Mm-hmm. Kluivert has had all of them. Like, no one else gets nicknames, but he says enough. Like, when he first came in, it was like a little inside joke between, I don't know how much you actually know this, but you would almost start every conversation with, I'm not going to lie. So that's where the truth came from.
I actually stopped saying that because of you guys were saying that.
Right. Like, I'm not going to lie. And we're like, we know you never do, Clivate. You never do.
Most of the time I don't.
So he's had the truth. You had another one, I don't know, but the Black Panther, we were like, backstage before it was his first boxing fight. Yeah. Well, backstage, and our coach, like head jiu-jitsu coach, Professor Manol, we were like talking, the was there, and the commentator comes up and he's like, oh, do you have a nickname? And like, without hesitation, Manol's just like, Black Panther. It works, like, yeah, we'll go with that.
I mean, on the second fight, he didn't really mention the Black Panther. He just said, Kluivert the Panther. I'm like, come on, give me the full thing though.
The commentator went ahead and just changed your name for you.
Yeah, he pretty much did.
Maybe it was like a racial thing. Maybe
that's what I'm thinking. He didn't want to put himself in no boxes.
I mean, come on. I put it in there. I wrote it down.
Yeah, so he gets a clearance, right?
Yeah, you get the pass for the night.
The full?
No, just the pass, just the regular one.
Just the regular pass.
Just the day pass. Just the day pass.
Where did you pull Black Panther from? Was it just the movie or?
No.
It was our coach.
That was afterwards. He was just like, oh, you should probably do the cross arm thing as well. After you win. Yeah, I'm like, that feels a bit corny though, but maybe on the next fight. Maybe I'll do it on the next fight.
Like a fight name has like so much weight.
Oh yeah.
It sticks.
You got to get it right, don't you?
Yeah. I didn't have one for my first one, and I was like, I'll never have one. But then the more you go and you get into the game, you're like, add some character to yourself.
Wait, so what's your fight name?
We went with the Skywalker. Like the
Skywalker. That's what that was. I saw that in your bio, right?
Yeah,
the Skywalker.
Skywalker, yeah. So
are you a big Star Wars buff?
Yeah, I was. Like, I like Star Wars. I liked not only Luke, but like Anakin Skywalker's arc as well. Like all the Skywalkers, I think cool story arcs and like some different meanings to it all. So I went with that, but who knows?
Yeah.
If it sticks. Like,
that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's different, yeah.
We'll keep it?
Yeah. I reckon you stick with it.
All right.
I reckon you stick with it, like, the Skywalker.
Yeah, it was cool when they said it.
Yeah. It's gangster. I feel like it makes such a big difference. Like, Conor McGregor is awesome, but the Notorious,
that's how I actually got into MMA. He had that TV show, The Notorious, and back in South Africa, I didn't really know much about MMA. And then I saw this guy, he's just saying whatever he wants on TV, at his family's house, he's got a whole party on the street and all that.
Yeah.
And I just saw this guy just intense. And that's how I actually started watching MMA. After that, it just fell off back into WWE though. But it was a fun little stint.
To confirm, it wasn't the fighting aspect that got you into the UFC. It was the street parties and the...
No, it was pretty much his personality. His personality was what I liked. He's just raw, He's just authentic. That's what I actually liked about him. Nothing else. It was just him, and that's why I tuned into it.
It was such a blow up on the scene when that was going on. Like, you look back at those days and... It's almost bittersweet. We're never going to get that feeling. Like when he was like going in and winning, like saying how he's going to win and then winning. Like, when are you going to get that again? Even if it happens again, it's happened now. Like,
yeah, that Mystic Mac prediction and the way he fucking just tormented Jose Aldo and just completely...
For like how long as well?
For months.
It was like year. Was it about a year? Was it?
I'm talking about the first one that we're going to do that ended up getting cancelled. That was brutal.
Tearing up the paper and eating it and all that. Like, crazy.
He said he like learnt Brazilian, just Portuguese rather, just to fuck with him.
Yeah.
Tu eres a
That would mess with you.
Bilingual.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So you're from South Africa, I take it?
I'm Zimbabwean by birth, but grew up in South Africa for most of my life.
Cool.
And came to Australia 5 years ago or so.
Nice.
So, loving it here.
How did so you guys aren't big on UFC over there? Like it didn't take over the way it's taken over here?
Soccer, rugby, and rugby are very big sports. Now that I'm following UFC, I like Duplessis in the UFC. It's a few MMA promotions back in South Africa, which are pretty interesting to see. But back when I was younger, I didn't really know much about combat sports. Pretty much was all boxing, really. Right. If I had to put a combat sport, I was pretty up there.
Yeah. It'd be interesting now because I feel like there are so many just natural athletes that are coming out of Africa, in particular in the fight game. I mean, there was a period of time where you had like all African champions between Israel Adesanya, Kamaru Usman, and Francis Ngannou, and it was like set up perfectly to do like a UFC there.
Came and gone. That was so. And they were talking about, weren't they like talking about like doing a Jones return to that Africa Cup?
Oh, imagine.
But now they got all the Americans now.
Who would have headlined? Ngannou or Adesanya? It's not.
It has to be Adesanya.
Yeah. And then Ngannou and then Usman.
Yeah, right. You put Usman third.
Is Jones in there? Like if he was going to do it? Like,
if Jones comes back, it's Jones. Yeah, right. It has to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if they did Jones and Ngannou in Africa with all three of them, that would have been.
That's main event for sure.
Yeah. Plus, there's a big scene in Nigeria as well, because this isn't the one Usman was promoting. And prior to that, there was this Netflix show about some Nigerian fighters. And it looked pretty interesting, pretty professional as well. Yeah. Yeah. So if you check that out on Netflix, there's actually
what's it called?
It was just something about, I'm not too sure. It's just, it had like a yellow theme to it. If I ever do find it, I'll put it up.
Well, I'm gonna find it in post production and put it right here.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I'd really like that Jones and Ngannou fight. Still to this day,
it's gotta happen.
It's gonna happen.
Don't let it be the next Ferguson Khabib. When they're like Jones is already probably 2 years left, like on his way out. They say make it happen.
It has to happen. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I love Jones Miocic. I think that's a really good fight. But I think to really settle the title of who is the heavyweight champion of the world, Jon Jones has to beat Francis Ngannou. And this is not to take anything away from Cyril Gane, because he's definitely an excellent fighter and an excellent kickboxer. But we saw 2 minutes of Jon Jones as heavyweight.
Yeah, not enough. It's going to be like moving forward, like we still don't know what we're going to get from him, I think.
Yeah.
He'll come back. I think he'll look stronger, like look a bit leaner, probably at the same weight though. Like if he can lean it out, I'm not sure. He did look a bit loose, and I think he said he wants to come back a bit tighter. And he's got that ring experience, but like, man, maybe that was the best we're going to see of Jones at heavyweight. Like, how can we tell? Like that takedown, as soon as the grappling started, it was over.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting to have someone in that heavyweight division that is grappling and wrestling centric.
Yeah, and technical.
Yeah,
like Charles Sonnen was saying, like he thinks he could have just walked in there at his walking weight and just like torn these guys up, because the heavyweight, like. Not that they're all less technical, but their game plans can be different with the size and power they have. They can just land that punch and get on that run. Whereas like light heavyweight, the more you go down, it's more technical, and you see all the way down to those smaller weight classes where it's just technique and cardio.
Yeah,
those crazy, like all the different weight classes obviously have their own unique styles. But Jones was just like, he is what the MMA fighters now are trying to be, but he was that 10, 15 years ago. Like he's just so ahead of the game.
Yeah, 100%. And to add to like the mystery of Jon Jones, you find out that he was only fighting 9 months before his UFC debut.
I didn't even know that.
Isn't that fucking wild?
Yeah. He would be a wild guy in your gym, hey? Like when he talks about those Gustafsson stories, like going out, like not training for that first Gustafsson fight, or like going out on the gear a week before all these fights, or hiding under the ring. Imagine if
you've heard about the hiding under the ring story.
Oh yeah, man. Like imagine just trying to like, that's going on in your gym and you're just trying to like hit some pads. Yeah. It would be fun.
Yeah, so the story goes, for people who aren't aware, that when USADA got introduced into the UFC, it was a very big wake-up call for a lot of fighters. And, I think Chael Sonnen was one of the first ones to get tested, and they kind of just came up to him and said, "We need your piss." And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" It was just like overnight like that. Everyone was obligated to fill like these USADA protocols. And anyways, it so goes that they went to Jon Jones' gym, and he'd been like kind of ducking and weaving, trying to get away from them. And they went to the gym, and when his like teammates found out about it, they told him, so they had him hiding under the center ring. And USADA just sat there and waited until the gym closed. And then there was like talks of, because he was there for about 6 to 8 hours, right? If the story is true, which is crazy.
I mean, to be fair, they wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning just to get tested. So I think they'll wait. They got time.
Yeah, they got time. And they wanted to get like urine samples from under the cage to test him, which is fucking wild.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of mafia shakedown is that?
Yeah. If he's gone under the cage, let the man be. Getting on your hands and knees and getting under there's low enough. Like, you can either take the USADA suspension or you can do that. Like.
Yeah. It's kind of like kudos, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think Jon Jones is just Jon Jones. Like, he is just his own beast and his own character and his own name, and you can't like necessarily compare him to anyone else in the UFC. Like, he's the Scottie Pippen of the UFC. He's just the wild card. He can do and get away with so many things and still on the night perform like no one's ever seen before. Yeah. And that's why that Francis Ngannou fight for me is so enticing, because Francis Ngannou, whilst he may not necessarily be the most technical and the most cleanest striker, he does just have that one punch knockout power that is unprecedented in the heavyweight division. Like, I don't think I've ever seen anyone punch or knock people out in the manner that Francis Ngannou has. It is absolutely wild. And you could say, okay, well, Francis has a puncher's chance against Jon Jones, but that's not necessarily the case, because we've seen in the past that Jon Jones is hittable, especially in the later parts of his career. We've seen that he does absorb damage and he does get hit, but he's just so durable and he's got such a strong chin that he's never been put in a position where he could genuinely be knocked out or put into danger. But you can't take those risks with Francis Ngannou. No, man. You have to be on point.
Yeah, I think, dude, like Alistair Overeem's freaking 1 inch taller after he got hit with that uppercut. Like, that must have adjusted his spine, man. Like, I still can't just watch that and just cringe. Oh,
didn't he get busted for gear as well last week?
Oh,
Alistair.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so obvious, but you know.
Did you see they busted Overeem and they've given him a suspension? I'm like, he went to, what was the kickboxing organization he went to? Like Glory?
Glory.
He went there and was just like all of a sudden back in just phenomenal shape, like juice to his gills. And then like it came out like a few days ago, they're like, yeah, they found out he was on the gear and suspended him. I'm like, the eye test passed that. Like, you guys are really suspending? Like, he's old, he's going to another organization. I'm sure they know what's going on. That's what I mean.
Let him do his thing.
Man, if they had just like a juice league, I would watch that.
Oh, yes. I've been saying this forever.
Like, I don't know where I heard it. I think it was on a podcast, and they do like, man, let's have our Olympics. And then let's see how far we can go Olympics. Like
I would, that's what I want.
You know, they can, have Usain Bolt do his thing, and then just have like the next fastest guy, put him on gear, see how much further ahead we can get. You know, let's push our scientific skills.
Let's get a crackhead from outside and just give him everything.
Man, would you not watch it? It sounds so entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, I've got no problem with people juicing or taking steroids, doing any of that stuff, as long as it's like just on the table, you know? Like bodybuilding competitions. Okay, we don't technically say it on paper, but we're not going to test you for steroids. We're not going to do anything. And you see these guys with 3 biceps stacked on top of each other, and you go, oh yeah, everyone's on the gear. And you have to go into the competition knowing that that's what's expected of you, or at least that's what you have to do to be competitive. If one person's doing it and then the other people aren't, then that's a problem, because this person's got an unfair advantage. And that's why, you know, organizations like USADA are so important, because I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for fighters to go up against people and go, I don't know, I think that guy might be on something.
Like, I've heard stories even at our level, someone be like, that guy over there is like juicing. I'm like, man, it's his second boxing bout in Canberra. Like, why are we, like, obviously if you're looking at taking it further, but I'm like, why is this guy like, for me, like, it's just, I don't see why people need to do that. Like, unless you're trying to be someone you're not, almost in a way. Like, that's just me. But dude, in 10 years, when I'm older and got lower TRT levels, I'm probably going to have a different perspective. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm older and like doing all that, but like for trying to like build the person that I want to be, I want to see what I've got, you know, what I've got in me. Let's put that forward. But yeah, like, I totally agree, man. If you're open with it, I've got no problems with like other people doing it at all. Yeah. Like if you're open with it and you put it on the table, I'm like, oh, sick. Like how jacked are you? Like show me, you know, but yeah, just be open with it.
I mean, it's the same thing that's happening with all the jiu-jitsu guys at the moment. You know, the IBJJF, they started testing everyone on the podium now.
Oh,
a lot
really?
of guys got busted.
That would be fine, wouldn't they?
I mean, for the older
Gordon Ryan looks 100% natty, bro.
What's all this corn memes going around? I don't even know
what is that? I've been seeing that a few times.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's like we got better corn.
Biotech ads. Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like if you're upfront about it, and you know, do you remember a couple of years back there was a big controversy about a female versing a trans fighter who was male for like 25 years or something, and then transitioned to female and didn't tell anyone about it.
That's so bad. Man.
Yeah. That's pretty much steroids like, at that point as well. It should be counted as a steroid.
It should be criminal.
That's just not fair.
But see, in my opinion, it's like, all you had to do was be up front and say, oh, okay, by the way, I used to be Bruce 10 years ago. if you just do that and the other fighter's okay with it and they're like, yeah, no, I still want to bang, then you know what?
Exactly. Find the willing opponent.
Like,
don't try and lie your opponent into something and then, it's just assault really. Like be like, I was transitioned and then who's willing to fight me and then find a willing opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just about transparency, and it comes back to the fact that martial arts is such like the foundation of martial arts is around respect, and it's around discipline, and it's around self-control, right? You guys are both 100%. Martial artists. These are probably core principles that you guys learn from a very young age. To be a martial artist, you have to be respectful. You bow before you enter the ring or the cage or the dojo or whatever, and you show respect towards your opponent. And that's the DNA of what you guys are doing. So to then go against those principles from the very onset, it's like
community's not going to like you very much.
No,
they're pretty much just people who just want to fight at the end of the day, you know, with no respect for anything else.
Yeah, well, it's what happens when you commercialize something.
It's very true.
Yeah, there's money involved, and people go, oh, well, you know, if I do this, I do that, I can get a bigger paycheck at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk fight. You've had one fight.
2 fights, the boxing and the MMA match, but it's 0-2 at the moment. The last fight was first MMA.
How did you feel?
First round, at the stoppage, I was like, Coach, I don't want to be here, you know.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah, I got leg kicked in the ribs, like first 10 seconds, like, oh, this fucking hurts.
Yeah.
And then I'm on the ground, just trying to get some air, just try to breathe, stay calm. Second and third, I was actually feeling more confident, started getting in there, put some leg kicks in, started clinching heavy, tried to wrestle him down, but he was a bit bigger, a bit taller, but, you know, it is what it is. You just got to take what you have.
He was a very imposing fighter, and he's, you know, I think you mentioned earlier that he's fighting for the title now.
Yeah, he is fighting for the title at 57.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting if I can actually, improve on my next match, and maybe I could actually challenge him again.
Where do you think it went wrong for you?
For me, I was my footwork. I didn't, gauge the distance. I was a bit hesitant after he actually, started imposing himself onto myself. So it's one of those things where it's like I just have to be more comfortable, striking. I'm good at jiu-jitsu, but if I can't engage, the clinch or the wrestle, what's the point if he can just, stay, keep his distance and all that. So that's one of the most important things I'm trying to, Luke is pretty much helping me out with my footwork, get in and out, but that's all I can do at the moment,
Yeah, absolutely. And because you did mention earlier that like while you were in South Africa, you didn't do a lot of mixed martial arts. It wasn't big over there. Like, were you training in South Africa?
Predominantly, I was just doing a lot of athletics, high jump, 100-meter relays. That's mostly what I did. I didn't really play too much soccer. I only started doing it here in Australia. It's very community-based, much easier to get into. And then 2 years ago, I wanted to do boxing. And I started listening to Joe Rogan quite a bit, and he kept mentioning this thing called jiu-jitsu. I'm like, what is that? I don't understand the graces and all that. And I started searching it all up. And one of the guys, Tyson, used to train at Alliance. He recommended it, and I've been there since. So 2 years now. and I love it, and that's why I started doing MMA.
It's quite impressive that you were willing to get into the cage with 2 years of training. Like that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, I got roped into it a little bit. Like,
it was more of a
like a year in. The coach is like, "Oh, Clivate, you've been doing the comp classes with us. You've been just taking a few shots. You want to do a boxing match?" I'm like, "Yeah." I didn't really think about it too. It's like, yeah. Got in there, did pretty well for my boxing match. Bit different from MMA, way different. And then he's like, "Oh, don't do MMA this time." I'm like, "Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's give it a shot." And then we couldn't find an opponent. This time around, got an opponent, lost. But hopefully on the next one, I can actually get someone who's willing to fight, and I'll be.
Because you are, with all due respect, you are a smaller fighter. Like you don't have a massive frame. Is it harder for you to find opponents?
Yeah, even if I do find opponents, they're much taller, much lankier, or they're coming down in weight. So they always have a much bigger frame compared to myself. So that means it's a bit difficult to go for double legs, clinching, or just try and get the back. They're much taller. It's much different.
And that's where the striking becomes so important.
That's where the strike becomes a bit of an issue. So it's like watching the Volkanovski and Makhachev. He's much shorter, but the weight's the same. But it's much more difficult to get inside the pocket. So that's what I need to really work on: get in the pocket and actually play my own game.
Yeah. Did you feel like kind of discouraged, or did you question yourself at any point after handling that second loss? Did you have any of those doubts? Because they do plague fighters, right? Like you take a loss and it's a hard thing to do. I recently had Jacinta Roston on, and she's in my opinion, she's the best female fighter in Australia. She's, cleared out her division. She's gone competed internationally, and she recently lost against Josephine Newson. Yeah. Josephine Newson trains with Khamzat Chimaev and has, is probably the next prospect to join the UFC.
Yeah.
And for Jacinta, it was such a big fight. It was such a big deal. And it kind of touches back to what you were talking about before, Luke, where you try not to make the fights a big deal. You try not to put too much weight on them and just take the competition as it comes. And it was hard for her to handle that loss in a very close fight, mind you. Like it could have gone her way if the judging was a bit different, or if there was more weighting put on takedowns as opposed to clinch work or whatever. Like MMA judging is tough.
Yeah.
And what I want to circle back to is it was tough for her to handle that loss. It was her first loss in her career. So I want to know, like, how was your reaction to that loss? How did it feel having to go back home, back to the gym, knowing that was kind of on your shoulders?
Like I said, after the first round in the stoppage, that's when I really doubted myself a lot. I felt like, I shouldn't be here, It felt like this is a really tough situation that I haven't really felt, the pressure, the weight. After the third round, I lost by unanimous decision. The coach was really supportive. The team was very supportive afterwards. So I didn't really feel down per se. I felt like, what? I did what I could. I didn't want to regret on what I did in the match, and I put it all out there. And so all I want to do is work on the mistakes that all the mistakes that I did in the match. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. So I'm not really too discouraged. That's why I'm really excited to go on the next one and see how I actually feel afterwards.
Yeah.
And see if I want to actually continue doing MMA.
Yeah. I think, it's going back to the discipline and the focus and going, okay, like we're going back to the tools, we're going back to, because the reality is that in boxing, for example, right, to have an O on your record is a really big deal. It's everything. Yeah. That's how you market the biggest fights. Whose O is going to go away? And they just push that narrative so hard. And in disciplines like Muay Thai, Luke, you can probably attest to this. In Muay Thai, it's not a big deal at all. If you lose a fight, you just get on, fight next week again.
Yeah.
Against some...
Just keep grinding.
Yeah, keep grinding. And I think MMA is in a weird spot where they want to really value the O, but it is so hard to maintain it.
To be fair, I don't really think it's that important because you see some really great fighters, especially style for style. It just doesn't match up sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like in boxing, you might find 11 people with their O record, and how valuable is it if everyone has one?
Right.
And everyone is just ducking one another when there's 3 separate promotions. So it makes it a bit, it puts it in a weird spot. Are people actually stat padding, or what can you actually say? Because I can't really trust someone with like 30 fights and all.
Yeah.
Did you actually fight some 10 guys were amateurs, 10 for semi-pro, and actually 10 were professional? So how professional was the whole pool of fighters that you actually went against? So that's actually the big problem that I have with boxing. But it's still a great sport, but bit of, discrepancies there.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you on that 110% because I think, like you said, if everyone's got the O, then it kind of loses its value. I mean, we saw it with like, if you take a fighter like Tommy Fury and you get his like the collective record of every single person he's ever fought, it's something ridiculous. It's like 6 wins to 200 losses. It's like, what? Like, who did you really beat?
Big Jakey.
How do you feel about the influencer mixed martial arts boxing crossover?
Jake Paul.
I'll eat it up, man. Like,
yeah,
I like it.
Entertainment's entertainment to me. Like I said, like, I probably don't watch it now, but like as a kid, I used to watch the WWE, and like, it is different. But like the big thing is their entertainment push, the entertainment side, and with these like social influencers, they entertain. Like that's their job. And to be able to mix that with, they could have done it with anything. Like to be able to mix that with a sport, the entertainment side, and bring that sport side, like boxing's perfect for it because you get the storylines with it, that you get the big build up. So it's good, if it was Jake Paul versus KSI in a basketball match, it might be a bit less boring. But the boxing, man, like I'll eat it up. I'd love to see them do it in MMA as well. Like, it would just be fun. Like, man, let's just get these 2 guys that have trained MMA for 4 months and do all this social media and just like chuck them in a ring. I'll watch it. As long as it's like similar level, man. Like, and they're both willing opponents. It's
Tyrone Woodley, Jake Paul in a boxing match.
Yeah,
I was so cut about that first one. I lost money.
I lost $100 on you'll laugh at this now, but who knew at the time, on Ben Askren versus Jake Paul.
Oh, come on, bro. I could have. I'm barely a fight analyst, right? Like, I just enjoy the sport. I'm more of a fan than anything, but I saw Ben Askren hit pads once. So I'm like, I think Jake's got this.
I didn't even see that. I was like, dude, he's a combat athlete. Like, how can he lose? But
but to be fair, the Tyrone Woodley was, I'm not speculating or anything. I'm not throwing any accusations, but it felt like he was on the ropes and Tyrone could have finished him. I'm just saying on the first match, it just seemed a bit suspect, No,
you're right. But isn't that like kind of Tyron's problem? Isn't that kind of like the whole like...
The past 3 years of his like UFC career was him just waiting.
To be fair, he got a big bag out of it, so I'm not really going to say he
got 2.
Yeah,
he got 2 big bags.
So he went home, he's living it up, so who am I to say?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Jake just signed with the PFL, I believe, and he's got like a 6-fight contract with them.
That's right. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, and that hasn't been talked about too much, but it would be really interesting to see like that, what they've done for boxing transition over to MMA.
Yeah.
And then like the question is then, are any of those guys going to be given a shot at the UFC? Because that could become its own like pathway, right?
Imagine? And like, what's he going to do? Is he going to fight boxers in MMA now? Like, is he going to? He's not. He can't fight an MMA fighter, man. Like the grappling, the amount of time it takes to like catch up on that, when he's suspended all on like even the stance and all those little like nuances that come with like the differences in MMA and boxing. He can't. He's not going to be able to go in. Like it'll be another CM Punk if he goes in and versus someone that's trained jiu-jitsu, not jiu-jitsu, MMA for even like 2 years. Compared to like he's just going to be stepping into, I'm imagining, for like a year after the boxing scene and doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know, who would he fight?
Well, like here's the crazy part. There was talks of him doing a boxing match with Nate Diaz, and then I believe what part of the contract was that they would do 1 boxing match, 1 MMA match.
Get around it.
Oh, he'll be finished. It's got no chance.
Nate fucking Diaz. Nate Diaz. I would if I was Jake, I wouldn't even want to box Nate Diaz.
Yeah,
he's still in the game. To be fair,
he is, man.
He's not retired.
How big's Jake?
I believe he's 6'1" and 175 pounds, whatever that is in kilos.
So that's a close fight.
Yeah. On paper for sure, but still, Nate
weight wise,
Nate Diaz with the cardio that he's got. I mean, the guy literally does triathlons. Like he just is. And the amount of pressure he's just able to absorb and keep moving forward. Like, just when you think you've got Nate Diaz.
That Edwards Diaz.
Oh my God, man.
Dude, that's the champion now. And that, he went out almost not like, got that last punch in on Edwards.
Uh-huh.
Who else did he fight? Like Ferguson on the way out. Won that pretty convincingly. Dude, this guy, like, he's not like.
Didn't he? No, he didn't. He didn't fight Peter Yan, did he? No.
No. But like, he was fighting top level opponents, and sure, like he wasn't looking like when he versed Masvidal. That was rough to watch.
Yeah,
that was rough. Like in the ball, like hands on the knees and that. But like, it's not like he's on his way out, like old and retired now. Like this sort of story that they're trying to paint a little bit, especially when he was leaving. Like he was versing these top level guys and still doing his damn thing. Like that picture against Edwards, like that's the moment of the fight.
Yeah, it's like. Sure, Edwards probably won on points, but if that went an extra round.
Yeah.
And that's one of the that's one of the most frustrating things about Nate Diaz is it's like, unless we're talking like he gets, completely knocked out or he gets, like he has like had like against Masvidal, right? Like it was just clear he lost that fight. But in a lot of his losses, it's just like he just ran out of time. Like he's just so patient and so like unorthodox in his style, and he feints in such weird ways and he switches stances and moves back and forth and taunts you. I mean, in the Leon Edwards fight, he's literally sticking his ass out telling Leon to kick it.
That's becoming big in the MMA now. What's going on with that, by the way? Have you seen all these ass grabs and stuff going on?
I saw that.
There was literally just another one. Like, what, Adesanya did it to Vittori, maybe?
Yeah, that was mad sus.
Was it Jan and Merab?
Yeah.
That just happened again? Like, it's a new tactic, I reckon. They're just implementing. Like, I don't know what's going on.
I mean, speaking of Edwards, who you got for that fight tomorrow, actually?
It's a good fight.
Yeah.
It's a really good fight.
I mean, Usman, I think Usman's going to take it, but it could go either way, But watching that match was pretty interesting because we had a jiu-jitsu competition on the second match, and as we were walking around, some guys were in a corner and they had a tablet. The first thing I saw was the first round, I think a minute left, and Usman had his back taken. I'm like, what's going on? And then as the match progressed, Usman was just taking over. But obviously, that head kick that came along, it happens to everyone, but what can you do?
Yeah.
But I still think Usman was going to finish it, though. I personally think. I don't finish it? I think he can. I think, look, you can check me up tomorrow, but I think he's going to finish it.
What do you think?
I am a big supporter of Edwards. I've just loved his style for years. Like I like to compare his set. Oh yeah, is that good?
That is not good. We might just pause.
Yeah.
All right, boys, we're back.
So
are we still rolling? Yeah, we're back.
That was great.
So Usman, Leon.
I feel like we have to address it.
Adrenaline.
Yeah. I feel like we have to address it.
No, coach just set off the alarms.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Round of applause for Matt, boys.
Send the bill through to him.
No, it's all good. This shit happens, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. So yeah, you're gonna spit some bars on Edwards Usman.
Yeah, that was a trigger warning for this shitty.
Yeah, whatever you're about to say, don't say it, bro.
I can't let the world know the knowledge. I think Edwards will take it.
Really?
I'm just a supporter. I've watched him for like probably not till his like last Usman fight, but like he was one of the first fighters where it was like when I was watching him, he wasn't so known. I was like, I love his kickboxing style. It's like you watch him hit pads and you're like clean, crisp, like
so technical,
satisfying. Like it's like an art to watch. It really is, and you can tell he's trained hard. So I think he'll take it. And it's hard to bet against Usman, right? Like he is like one of the goats of that division, but it's just like he is on his. He spoke a couple of years ago about like being on the way out on the Joe Rogan podcast, like looking like a couple more fights, do this and that with all of his injuries. Like, how much longer can you extend that? I think Edwards is onto something where he's going to like open the door for him and let him out.
Yeah, personally. I think you're on the money there. Like you have to factor in the fact that firstly, Edwards is probably one of my favorite strikers of all time. He's so technical. I know we just talked about how Nate Diaz just ran out of time in beating him, but in that fight, Edwards looked so good and so dangerous, just hands up in the pocket, ready to go, always just outside of range and enough to clinical. And he had Nate hurt a lot of times. Oh, yeah. And we didn't get to see that in the first Usman fight. I don't feel like Edwards really had the chance to show his technicality, and that's not to take anything away from Edwards, but I just feel like Usman's so good and he's so able to read plays and apply pressure and manage distance that Edwards just couldn't get the game going. And I don't know if he was in the right headspace. I don't know if it was just a bad night for him or if the skill difference just wasn't there.
I think they weren't the fighters they are now. They were finding out who they were back then. Like now we're getting them like this is Leon Edwards, this is Usman in the last fight.
Yeah.
We're getting that again. In their first fight, I think they're probably still finding out like who they want to be as a fighter.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point. So you definitely can't rule out Usman because he's, you know, like you said, one of the greatest of all time, particularly in that division. And he's so well-rounded. Like you can't strike with Usman. You can't wrestle with Usman. You can't grapple with Usman. Like he covers all bases so well. But at the same time, I love the storyline of Leon Edwards. And I know storylines don't win fights, but God damn it, if he won.
In London.
Oh my God.
London. Headshot. Dead.
Rocky.
I mean, London is a treasure trove of a lot of athletes, particularly football as well.
Yes.
You mentioned that you're a Liverpool supporter. I mean, you guys are going pretty well. Better than our team, but...
Come on, bro.
I'll finally chirp in here. I'm a United supporter, so I can
no.
finally talk about the Prem.
You've been quiet for a couple of years now.
Yeah, he was... last year, I would wear my jersey every day. I have like 4 Chelsea jerseys. Let's not go there. So I've got 4 Chelsea jerseys, yeah.
Right.
I wear them always after training. He's always... never mentioned anything about the Prem. This year, wow. Can't hear the end of it. I'm telling you right now. Especially the second half of the season, that's been on fire.
And we're third, and this is big for me.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Let's talk about that Liverpool game though. So
yeah, let's talk about it.
I have not seen a highlight. I can't talk about it. Like the Liverpool United game.
I feel like that's very strategic by you.
Yeah.
If I don't watch it, it doesn't exist.
What happened? Because I'm not joking when I say I didn't watch a highlight.
7-0 happened.
Yeah, I mean that's all you need to know, right?
So you need to know 7.
But being a Liverpool nowadays is such a frustrating experience. Like we had it's almost like Liverpool and Man United have swapped roles again. It's like we've just become this mid-table team lacking any inspiration, lacking any, you know, like fight anymore. And
I know how it feels. I thought you were talking about United for a second.
it's frustrating, man.
Do you think it's part of the fact they were so dominant for so long? Like mentally, it's just like worn them out, and they, you know, losing some of the players they have, and also keeping some of the players they have. Like you've got to keep your core squad, but you got to keep fresh new talent to keep everyone on their toes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they got rid of Sané. Like what's happened since then?
Nah, I wouldn't even say that. I think it's the
I was gonna jump in there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think losing Mane was a big issue for Liverpool, but there were already holes in our game. Like Virgil Van Dijk hasn't looked the same since he came back from that injury. So like, you know, I get he's a monster and he's beast, but he probably did need to get replaced, or at least have someone that was competing with him for that role at some point. And I don't know that, you know, the new blood that we have brought in has delivered in the way that we expected them to. And I think anything in sport goes through cycles, right? Like there's just periods of time where a certain team or a certain fighter or a certain athlete will just be on a crazy run. And then, you know, as the saying goes, when you win, you celebrate. When you lose, you ponder. And I think a problem with winning teams is that they just get used to winning and they get comfortable with winning, and there's someone just under them that's hungrier and wants it more and needs it more. You know, I think that's a perfect example of Usman Edwards. I think, you know, Usman just was the champ forever. And I'm not saying he doesn't work hard. I'm not saying he doesn't train. But when someone else has the thing that you want and you want to take it from them, it evokes a different thing from within you. And I think, you know, for a long time, Liverpool had that, and then they got accustomed to being champions or accustomed to becoming second place and doing well in the Champions League. And then, you know, teams started coming up. Newcastle got a whole new range of resources available to them, courtesy of, you know, Arab money, and, you know, like teams like Everton and teams like Man United that weren't doing great, and now like looking amazing.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with Liverpool was once everyone figures out your weaknesses, you know, like the trend issue was he got exposed, and now everyone knew what flank to actually, you know, decimate the midfield. United with Maguire, same issue, just slotted through the.
Was he ever up there? I think they found that out.
I mean, to be fair, United was going up, but then that defensive issue, which Liverpool had, which was plaguing Liverpool for 5-7 years prior to that, was the biggest issue Liverpool had. Yeah, just getting a better back line. That's what Liverpool had an issue with for many years.
Van Dijk, Alisson, getting those two in, like that was the season that really turned around for you guys, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The strike was the forward was amazing. The midfield was good. The defense was just lackluster, to be fair. And what's his name again? The bold fellow. He used to get all those yellow cards back in the day. Just forgot his name now.
Shirley?
Could be him. He was a CB.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it not him?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was on and off, but he was okay though.
He was just aggressive, man. He was kind of like our version of Sergio Ramos.
Yeah, pretty much. But not defending well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's it's the nature of the game and it's the nature of sport. Things ebbs and flow and they change. And I think in particular in MMA, man, it's going to be so interesting to watch the next 5 years because the new generation that are coming up are going with the UFC already formed. It's already like established. So there's a direct career path. You got to remember back in the early days of the UFC, you weren't guaranteed any positions. You weren't guaranteed any money. There was just like a little website and you could start beef with someone. And then if you got enough traction on that, you could go and fight in the UFC. And that was only like 20, 30 years ago, maybe. And in that progression, in the growth of the UFC, the sport itself has evolved and the sport itself has changed. And the athletes are getting better and the science behind it is getting better. Like, I think particularly in strength and conditioning, right? Like in strength and conditioning, for the longest time, you just saw like guys ripping fat bicep curls and doing bench press and trying to get big and yoked as possible so that they're stronger in a fight. And then, somewhere along the way, people realize, actually, you know what, like, by weighing all that much and trying to be that heavy, you're going to slow down your footwork. You're not going to be as explosive. So then that correction was made. But then you don't want to be too much of that because you're going to be subject to someone else who's really strong that might be able to knock you out. And so there's all these balancing mechanisms at play. And I think now is like, we've got a formulated structure on what a UFC fighter needs to be, what they need to look like, how they need to behave, how they need to eat, how they need to train. And there's a generation of kids just coming up with that already set in play. So it's going to be crazy to see what they can do with that.
Yeah, that's what, like I was saying, like it's going to be so exciting the next, 5-6 years, I think. Like we'll really start to see what is capable in MMA. Like these kids that are, doing it since like just a full MMA as a sport, like we were sort of saying before, that are, doing it since they're probably 8, 9, I don't know. There's going to be these kids that are starting now and in like 10 years time, they'll be 19. Like the sport's going to look like professional. And I'm not even sure how it'll look like in terms of like when the calf kick came in, like, man, like how many fights were you just watching calf kicks for like for the next 3 months after that? And it was like, this is the end game. And then it was like the Dagestani wrestling came in and like, that was the answer. There's always like the answer, but there's always it's a ones and O's sort of a thing. Like for every action, there's a reaction you can hit as well.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's like, what's it going to evolve into? What's it going to be in 5 years, in 10 years? Like what's going to be the main thing?
For me, it was the oblique side kick. That is like that was the game changer for me. When Jon Jones started using that, it was just like, you so just gross. Wince every time. Like,
I can imagine the feeling. Like your knee,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. That's the thing. Because on one hand, it's like, well, you guys stepped into a cage, you agreed these were the rules, and that's within the rules, so why not? But on the other hand, it's like, if you just step at the wrong time and get hit with one of those, that's your career over.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to draw the line.
Yeah,
it isn't it? Like if you start putting rules like that 12-6 elbow rule is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. If they're allowing those knee stomps and every other elbow in the book, like I can whack my shin across your face, but I can't drop my elbow from that angle to that angle, but I can do it from that angle. Yeah. Like you start getting all these like weird rules like that. So it's like, it's probably hard to know where to draw the line.
Do you know why that rule was put into play?
I think so. It's about like the martial art displays of like bricks and stuff, right? Wasn't it? Like when they were first making it, or is that not true?
Is that what you heard?
Yeah. Second-hand knowledge, I could be wrong, but I heard like when they were creating the rules, they were like, they didn't like the displays of like how many bricks you could break doing that one maneuver. They're like, it's too strong, it's too powerful. So they're like 12-6 is just a no-go.
Right.
It hasn't changed since, but I
just know it got tied up in the commissions and they had to make so many different like, they had to give here and take there. And so a lot of the rules that were developed like 10, 15 years ago were just put in so that they could get approved by like the Vegas Commission or the New York Commission or whatever. And then they've just stuck around.
Yeah.
That's why you watch one championship. You can knee on the grounded opponent.
Yeah, soccer ball kicks to the head.
Demetrius when he went over there.
Oh, BJ, I can't wait for that fight. DC Morales. Let's go.
How do you feel about bare knuckle?
I really haven't watched it. Like, to be honest, just
the idea of it. How do you feel about the idea of it?
Savage, like savage and brutal. Like, I couldn't do it.
The Russians are taking it too far. I saw some chicks wearing jeans, trainers, and a crop top, bare knuckle. I'm like, it's a bit too much now.
Yeah, like
organized. On concrete as well. So it's like. Oof.
Yeah, well, the Russians are known for that, though. They take everything. Have you seen phone box fighting?
Oh, yeah.
Or the car jiu-jitsu?
Car jiu-jitsu.
You're like, what are we doing here? I'm watching it, but what are we doing?
Yeah, some girl like took the seatbelt and just choked out. Like, wow.
Yeah, that photo booth, like, how do they, like,
hooks.
How do you hurt each other?
Oh, hooks, man.
You're so close.
Yeah. It's weird, right? Because it's super entertaining for like a highlight reel or a clip or whatever. But when you realize there's probably like some mid-level phone booth box fighter that's just like barely getting paid and getting like completely destroyed with CTE and
slap fighting. Let's go.
How do we feel?
Retarded.
Yeah,
makes no sense.
Yeah, like I think it's just I think it's for them. It's a social media push. Like Dana's doing it for the reasons of social media purely. If social media wasn't around, you wouldn't have Power Slap League, but because it's such like eatable bites of footage where you pretty much just get the knockout of a fight. Like it's I call it a scissors paper rock league. I haven't actually seen like if they have matches, but it seems to me whoever wins the first like scissors paper rock, it's like, well, I lost. All right, like I got to sit here and just get knocked out now.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think. It's weird that it's being pushed so hard through the UFC channels when, like, for example, Volkanovski's last fight was barely talked about by the UFC.
Yeah.
I did see, like, a lot of it, like, I'm sure it's true, like, I saw a lot of that, but, like, personally, I don't know if it's my algorithm, but, like, all I was getting that week, maybe because I'm, like, follow all these MMA pages and live in Australia, all I was getting was... like Volk ads and like this and that.
Absolutely, but that was probably through like alternate channels like Dapper Media or Fight Night Oz or like UFC ANZ, like those. Yeah. What is it? Yeah, is it UFC ANZ?
Yes.
Oh, that yeah.
Like those specific ones for sure, but in terms of like the actual UFC, and I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, I think that's because of a bit of lack of storyline.
Yep, for sure. But like,
I think
you could easily make it the one you're talking like the personal storylines, not the number 1 pound for pound, like number 2 pound for pound. Like you could sell that like crazy.
Oh yeah, man! Number 1 pound for pound versus number 2 pound for pound. That should be the biggest fight in history. Top 5 for sure.
It's like so hilarious that like that was like the main running theme and for like I guess like UFC, marketing and stuff for ages, like, oh, who's even after the fight, Volk's still number 1, this and that, and then Jon Jones was like, hold my beer, let me go do like a 90-second fight, and he just went from like 7-1, and now it's like they can't even have that fight amongst themselves anyway. 5 for 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think actually Jon Jones coming back kind of kills the Islam.
He went up to number 1 after that.
No, but I think it kind of kills the rematch.
You reckon? Yeah.
Because you can't rely on the pound for pound number 1 versus pound for pound number 2 anymore.
That was a big part of it.
2 versus 3, it's like
But if Alex beats Yair, like who's next?
Yeah, well, that's been the question of Alexander's career his whole time.
Yeah,
his whole time.
Alex is a goat, and he's so inspiring, isn't he? Like as an Australian.
I mean, he stopped the Dagestani wrestling, Australian rugby.
He did.
Australian rugby. That's
the next one. That's the next calf kick.
What wrestling does Australia have? That. There you go.
It's like the next evolution of mixed martial arts. Everyone's just doing rugby.
Hey, look, I'm just going to gain 50 kilos. I'm just going to get bulky.
You're going to see Khabib over at the Bulldogs next year.
I'd watch it.
Yeah, you would.
Didn't Khabib offer Cyril Gane training for wrestling?
Well, he should have taken it.
I would as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but doesn't he want him to go over to like Dagestan for 2 years? And
no, he said he'd bring your
shave
whole team
his head,
as well.
do the whole thing.
Garn's fun there, isn't he?
Oh yeah, true.
He's got no hairline to miss.
Have you seen the UFC embedded videos?
Yeah, I do watch them. I watched the Edwards Usman fight recently, the embedded.
Perfect. Did you see the bit where his barber had the head torch on to find his hairline?
No, I did not see that.
Usman's getting his hair cut and his barber's like, yeah. Like, bzzz. Like it just has his light on his head. I'm like, oh. How do you bring that up for? Because I bet you he didn't have that like the whole time he's been getting his hair cut, like his whole life. At one point, his barber's like, bro, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to bring out the head torch. Like, don't take it personally.
So do you reckon the barber was just feeling spicy that day because all the camera crew was there?
Yeah.
It was just like he's never used it the entire time. It was just like, what the fuck are you doing, man?
I didn't even know what he was cutting. Like, you go back and watch it. I'm like, there's nothing
Acting
there.
brand new. Come on.
Listen, guys, I hate to cut this short, but we do have to wrap up. Go plug your socials, let the people know where to find you.
Yeah, I'm just Luke_Stokman on Instagram. It's the best place to follow me.
For me, it's _Clive, but say it's KLIV. That's where you can find me.
Yeah, I'll have the links down below. You can go check them out there. Best of luck for your competition this weekend, boys.
Thank you.
Wish you all the best, and I'm looking forward to seeing your careers progress.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you heaps for having us as well.
Thank you, guys. All right, remember to subscribe, guys. We'll see you next time.